Hi there and good morning. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I'm just gonna go with the camera for the guys that I'm seeing. Today on the call you have myself, Chloe from Oak. We also have Will from Oak on here as well, and we have Ben and Caroline from Tiger. So any questions you have, feel free to pop it in the chat and we'll answer anything live that we can, but we'll also be doing a follow-up email with any questions that were asked and answers following on from that. Today we're going to be doing half an hour on Oak's Clarify Go and then half an hour on Tiger's Prism in that order. I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourself and say hello before we get going on the demonstrations and the presentation.
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Ben Nicklin. I'm the CEO at Tiger. So thank you to Chloe and Will for extending the invitation to join you today, and look forward to introducing Prism to you. Caroline?
Hi, I'm Caroline Lewis. I'm the Sales Director over at Tiger, and yeah, looking forward to hanging out for a little while, hearing more about the Oak Clarify Go side of things, and then presenting the Tiger Prism platform for you at the end of the programme.
Wonderful. And Will, do you want to say hi?
Hi guys. So obviously, as Chloe's going to be running this today, I'll be looking at the questions. So any questions, hopefully better answer them in real time. Otherwise, we'll come back to you after the event.
Thanks very much. So maybe we'll just give it another 30 seconds just for any last people to join. And I will start up my presentation.
We'll disappear into the background and listen intently, Chloe.
Lovely, thank you.
Sure.
Can everyone see my presentation okay?
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. Okay. Right, so today obviously we're going to be, oh sorry, I'm just gonna get this out of my way. We're going to be looking at Oak's Clarify Go recording and Tiger Prism reporting for Microsoft Teams. So the presentation that I'm going to be going through will mainly be on the Oak stuff, and then the guys from Tiger will be going through the Tiger stuff. So please look at them in terms of things like the business is separate. However, we are working in partnership with Tiger, and we are also looking to integrate the two solutions together as well. So you'll be able to go into Tiger reporting and play the Oak recording from there. So those are the upcoming plans, so do look forward to keeping an eye out on that as well. Okay, so I think it goes without saying that there's been a big growth in people taking on Teams phone in the last few years, and that seems to be ever increasing. So we want to take advantage of that, and hopefully we're going to be able to provide you those tools so that you can take advantage of that as well. So it doesn't actually matter how you're making and receiving Teams calls within Teams. So whether you're using the Microsoft calling plan, direct routing, Operator Connect, whether you're doing hybrid with a hosted phone system or an on-premise phone system, because both the Clarify Go solution and the Prism solution tap directly off the Teams tenant itself using the relevant Microsoft Graph APIs. We collect directly from source, so it doesn't matter which one of these you're going for. It doesn't matter if you chop and change. It will not affect your recording or your reporting solution. And it also means that we capture everything. So sometimes you might get recording included or reporting included in some of the direct routing solutions, or maybe some of the hosted phone system solutions, but often those solutions only record PSTN calls because they're not recording directly off the tenant, which means they won't be recording Teams to Teams calls and meetings in a lot of cases, whereas because we are recording directly off that tenant, we are capturing information on those types of communication as well. So just to cover that, so with our basic Clarify recording license, we capture PSTN calls, Teams to Teams calls, both internally and externally, and meetings both internally and externally as well. And also, because we're recording using the Graph API, we can capture the visual side of things too. So we can capture the video and the screen sharing. However, we have got a lot of flexibility on that, and that does seem to be something that is quite unique to Clarify Go. I'm not saying it's completely unique, but there does seem to be a lot of flexibility, which means that when you are offering this recording solution to your customers, you have peace of mind that you can usually adapt the solution to cover their needs. So we can cover PSTN only if they didn't want to record the Teams-to-Teams or the meetings. We can turn off internal, so we do capture the meetings, we do capture Teams-to-Teams, we do capture PSTN, but none of the staff-to-staff calls, and that could be because they don't want to, for privacy reasons, or just because they don't want unnecessary storage being taken up on internal communication. We could turn off recording to and from specific users, so it could be that there might be a particular group in the contact center that you do want to record everything for, both internally and externally. But if they were to record to call the HR extension or the MD's extension, you can set it so any call that go to or from those users would not be captured. We also have on-demand recording. So if you didn't want to record anything unless you press a button and then it keeps that recording, you can do that. We can turn off just meeting recording, and we also have manual pause and resume. So if in general you wanted to record everything, but there might be a specific call you don't want to capture, or a customer says, actually, can you not record this call? You have the option to manually not record that call. Okay, so some newer information from us on the retention side. So with retention, users will be able to view how much data is stored in the container, whether that container is in Oaks Azure storage or the customer's Azure storage. We'll touch on that a bit later. Users will be able to configure how long the data is stored for in days. The ability to view and control data will be permission-based, and users will be able to configure different retention periods based on call filters. So you can see there's lots of examples here. And just to clarify as well, I will be sending out this presentation after the webinar today, so you are able to read through this in more detail. Okay, so when we look at the demo today, we'll be looking at recording and the Evaluate solution. In terms of Analyze, we are able to link our solution to any speech analytics. So if the customer has a preferred speech analytics, they can use our API to link into that. If not, we have some preferred partners that we have already integrated with. So you'll have the out-of-the-box speech analytics, sentiment analysis, so like emotion detection, speech to text, including integration into Microsoft Insights and Dynamics as well. Okay, so we're going to touch on the compliance and dispute resolution in a bit more detail, but obviously this covers the standard things around, training and objection handling for sales, and training for customer services as well, listening back to the recordings and trying to prevent abuse. All of our recording is tamper-proof, so we have for a long time always encrypted our recording using 256-bit AES encryption, and this means that all of our recording is tamper-proof. That is the internationally recognised level for recording to be seen as tamper-proof, so you can use it in a court of law, and it also ticks one of the main boxes from the financial perspective, so it's perfect for evidence purposes. We use user-defined access control. So when you create your setup for your username and password, you can put permissions against that. So you might have somebody with the administration level access, where they're able to access all recordings and all features, and then a supervisor or a manager might only be able to access recordings for a certain group and have less feature access, all the way down to a general user who's only able to listen to themselves and has a very limited feature access. So traditionally in recording, you would download a recording, and if you wanted to share it and attach it as a WAV or an MP3 to an email, you can do that within our solution. But the problem with doing that is you can then lose control of the recording. So that person can keep it and they can send it on. So we also now have the option for secure file sharing. So instead you could share a recording as a link, so you can only stream rather than download, and you can put an expiration date on that. So we cover GDPR, so there's a full audit trail of everything that happens within our solution, but also as long as you have permission, you can delete calls to cover a consumer's right to be forgotten. So if a consumer comes to you and says, I want you to delete that call you had with me. If you do not have a business case to keep it, you need to be able to delete it, and you can do that within our solution, like I say, as long as you have permission and there's a full audit trail of any deleted calls. From a financial perspective, we cover FCA, MiFID II, Dodd-Frank. So for FCA, that's very much around the encryption, and they usually set their own time frame on how long calls need to be kept, depending on the compliance officer. But for MiFID II, so we offer encryption. You can keep calls for actually as long as you want, but in this case, it would be 7 years. And also, because we do record via that Graph API, like I said earlier, and capture the internal calls, meetings, everything like that, we also cover the MiFID II requirement that you record anything related to a transaction, which is why it's so important not just to record PSTN calls. And Dodd-Frank is a similar requirement for the US. So for retail, travel and tourism, that's largely around PCI compliance, so payment taking. As I mentioned, we have manual pause and resume, but obviously that's not great for PCI compliance in case someone forgets to press the button. So we do have a really popular option, which is the automated pause and resume. So we can track the URL of a web-based payment screen. So when that URL pops up, that will automatically send a signal to pause the recording, and when that URL changes or you complete the transaction or close down that screen, that sends a signal to our call recording to automatically resume the recording. So it's pausing and resuming at the right time without manual intervention. Or there is the third option, which is more of a IVR type solution. We partner with Key IVR on that. So that allows a user to ask an end user, so an agent, should I say, to ask the end user to type in the card details rather than, so as in type them into their keypad rather than speak them, and then you don't need to pause the recording at all. However, that can be a slightly more costly option, which is why option number 2 can be very popular. And then lastly, we have HIPAA. That's more for US, and that's just covering the healthcare side of things for our requirements there. So ticking all the Microsoft boxes, as I mentioned, we use the Graph APIs to record the calls. We have Active Directory integration and things like single sign-on. And just so you know, we also have MFA as well for more secure access if that's a requirement. We have an API that allows you to link the call recording to your preferred CRM solution, or as I mentioned, you can also use that API to link it, the solution to a third-party speech analytics solution or something like that. We also use that API to link the call recording into third-party contact center solutions. So we have an integration, for example, with Roger 365 that allows you to play the recordings from their contact center solution. So that's a really good option too. In terms of the API for CRM integration, that allows you to do things like create hyperlinks, so you can play the recording directly from the customer record rather than having to search the recording in the recording interface. And it can also bring over names against customers' numbers in the recording interface, so you can search by name instead of number. We have more information on that if you'd like it. So we offer 2 deployments on the solution. We have our single instance and our as a service. The vast majority of customers go for the as a service solution because, you know, it's takes 50 minutes to deploy, it's hassle free, you don't have to worry about providing any virtual instances, so there's no virtual instance regardless of whether it's audio only or the video or screen sharing. We host that all for you, so you're just buying the licenses for the solution and that's it. If a customer did want a single instance where the whole solution does go into their environment, that tends to be more for high security government type purposes, but like I say, 97% or something of our customers will go for the Clarify Go as a service solution. So that's our cloud-based hosted recording option. That's a quick schematic. Again, I'll send that over to the relevant people after this. Okay, so all of the pricing is on a price per user per month. There is no upfront cost as long as either you as the maintainer or maybe their IT company are happy to set up the recording policies against the users or the user group. That only takes about 20 minutes, and then, like I say, we do the rest of the deployment for you, and that takes about 50 minutes, and then training would follow that. In terms of storage, you get 1 terabyte worth of storage included, and because we have such a good compression rate, you get 33,000 hours worth of audio included in that included terabyte. However, if the customer prefers, they are allowed to use their own blob storage. So the solution is still as a service and hosted and looked after by us, but the storage itself can go into the customer's blob storage. And whether we are storing the recordings or the customer is putting in their Azure blob storage, the customer is still able to specify where the recording is kept. So for their own compliance purposes, whether that be financial compliance or data protection or something else, they're able to specify which location. So whether that's the EU, the UK, Canada, US, whatever they prefer, we can store it in whatever location they want to go for. You can find us in Azure Marketplace. Okay, and that's a quick run through of the presentation. So now we're going to have a look at the solution for 15 minutes before I hand over to Tiger. Just going to quickly refresh that one here. Okay, cool. So this is after you've logged into the solution. So this is the first screen that you'll see. So this would show you any recordings that are currently in progress and what the average duration and the maximum duration of those calls is, how many calls you've had so far today, and then you've got the last 7 days. But if you weren't recording internal calls, for example, you just wouldn't have this yellow line. We've got live recordings, so this would show you any live recordings that are happening. And then we actually have a really great app that comes along with this solution that allows you to click and live listen to calls as they're happening. So it kind of gives you a phone system feature that you don't currently get within Teams to live listen to calls as they're happening, as long as you've got permission to do so. That app, as well as it giving you the option for live listening, it also gives you the option for live tagging. So you can live tag a call as, a demo, a complaint, something like that. And it allows you to live make comments as well. So if somebody asks you a question, you can add that in, and then you can search on that and comment against the recording later. And that is also where we have a button for our manual pause and resume. So you are able to manually pause and resume call recordings within the dial pad or within Teams to Teams, in PSTN calls or Teams to Teams calls, because there's a dial pad there. However, there isn't a dial pad in meetings. So for manually pausing and resuming meetings, you would do that via the app. And then there's the audit trail. So this is for all event types. You can see all your different event types by user and by date range. And if you did get a data access request, you can export that and send that off from here. So for searching, it's a lot of what you'd expect. So date range, last week, last month, etc., or custom gives you a start date and a finish date, or a start time and a finish time. Your details, whether the call is incoming, outgoing, or internal. Your duration, so if the call went on for 10 minutes, you can search between 5 and 15 minutes. In our QM, you are able to go down to as little as 1 second for your searching time, which again, I think is slightly unique to us and helpful in a contact center environment. If you are recording the visual or the screen sharing, you can drop down and see that on there. For phone numbers, you can either search for partial numbers, 07 for mobiles, area codes. As I mentioned, you can use the API to link your CRM to the solution, so you can save names against numbers automatically, but you can also set that up manually or via a CSV import. And then you'll see it in brackets like that after the number. Because we are using the Graph API, we will automatically bring over the names of the users into the solution, so you don't have to manually set that up. If a user leaves, you can still search by them, you just won't be using the license to actively record them anymore. So it's quite helpful if you do have a high turnover of staff, not having to remember who took over from who. As I mentioned earlier, you can make comments live during a call, and you can search on them here, same as tagging. Or you can see down here, you've got the option to add them retrospectively, which we'll have a look at in a minute. You also have annotations, which we are also going to look at. And we'll also come on to the QM and PCI too. So this is how you search on any recording that's got a pause and resume, whether it's manual or automated. And advanced is just for our hybrid solutions. So if you were recording both a normal traditional phone system and a Teams phone. You can differentiate between the two through there. So once you've done your searching, if you wanted to play your calls, if you wanted to play all of them, so for example, if we actually have a look at me for today. So if I wanted to play all of my calls today, I can click this button and play, and it will now play a playlist for me, or I can go around clicking the ones that I want, or I can do a drop down and add to queue. I also have the ability to add the evaluation from here. We're going to come on to that more shortly. This is the sharing that I mentioned earlier. So rather than attaching a recording to an email and sending it off, this is where you can put in the email address of who you want to share the recording with and the expiration dates, and then you can see any share history below. Search on me again. Here is where you'd have the deletion option. It will ask you, do you definitely want to delete that call? And of course, that is a permission-based feature. And you can also copy the link to a recording if you want to. These icons represent different things. So this would be any recording that has screen sharing, any recording that has pause resume, anything that's gone to our quality management measurement module, anything that you've made comments on. So if I actually add a comment retrospectively, this is where I would do it. And I can add my comment, click enter, and you can then see my comment with the date and the time and the comment itself. And also you can add tags retrospectively here and search on those up here too. You've got dates and times, direction of call. So here is an example of an incoming call from a standard phone number. So the calls come in, you can see a normal PSTN number, and me as a Teams user has answered that call. So that's why you can see my name. Here is a meeting that I attended. So in this case, it was an internal meeting because I created the meeting. But if it was an external one, you'd see that as well. But whoever created the meeting, their name will always be in the brackets. So regardless of whether they were an internal person or an external person, you will always see the name of the meeting creator in the brackets. If it's a Teams to Teams call, again, regardless of whether it's an internal Teams to Teams call or an external Teams to Teams call, you will always see the names of the people involved in that call. And here's another example of an outgoing call from me to a PSTN number. And as I mentioned earlier, if you did have the name saved against this number, it would say that in brackets. And then you can just see the participants and the duration. So if I now wanted to play this call, I can click on the play icon. That will load up the call. And in this case, it has got visual recording, so you can see the visual side of that. So you can see the video side, and you can also see the audio down here. I can click around to find the bit that I'm interested in. I can also click and drag and release, which means that this peachy part gives me some options, so I could mask that. So if I wanted to send off this recording, but there was part of the call that was private or confidential, I can mask that, so that part would be silent. I can also save just that selection, so it's an hour long, but I only want to share 5 minutes, I can do that. Or I can also put that on loop if I want to listen to it on repeat. And then anywhere along this grey bar, I can click on there, add my marker, click save, and then when I hover over it, it will remind me what I want to discuss and where in the call that is. And in your events, you can actually search on in your annotations, you can search on those tags as well. If there was any sort of pause or resume on here, it automatically tags with a similar tag to this. However, it's red, and it will show you the point of pause and the point of resume, and you'd see the silence in between, and they will automatically be marked as saying call paused and call resumed. And if I did want to download this recording and attach it in the traditional way, I can export it from here. And then lastly, we'll just have a quick look at our QM module. That's I'm showing this in a different demonstration, but actually normally you would just go down to here and click on the QM and then you'd find it from here. I just don't have any pre-created projects, so I'm just going to show you it from here instead. So if I go into my project, you can see there's a pre-created project here for customer services. So if I click run on there, it will ask me to update my settings. So I would pick which agents it is that I'm interested in evaluating. maybe the calls have come in or gone from a certain number. Direction, a minimum length of call. So like I say, you can go all the way down to 1 second with that if you want to. Any call that maybe is being tagged. So if this was customer services, it might be complaints, or for sales, it might be a sale or an agreed appointment. For compliance, it might be something that you've marked as something that you want to check was dealt with correctly. It could be all calls, it could be a percentage of calls, maybe just random 10% of calls to and from your contact centre agent, or maybe it could be all calls tagged as a complaint, or just a required number of calls per agent, etc. And then you do the to and from time and the to and from date. So if I just pop that in there and click run, it then creates a playlist of calls for me. And here's some questions that I created earlier. So you can have as many questionnaires and as many questions as you like. The pricing on this, the licensing, is based on the number of agents that you want to evaluate. So if I'm a supervisor and I had 50 people that I want to evaluate, I would buy 50 evaluation licenses. But if I maybe had 3 other colleagues that might also want to do something to evaluate those same 50 people, that won't affect the licensing. So this would be my questionnaire for me as the customer services manager. So I click play to listen to the call. And then I would go through my first question, which is, did they use the correct company greeting? That is a yes or no type question. So I'll click yes. But that could be, did they use the correct script? Was the customer satisfied with the call? Were they able to answer all the questions? And we do sometimes get asked, by the way, why would you go for this, or why would you go for speech analytics? And they do serve different purposes. So, for example, in this case, one of the questions might be, was the agent able to answer all of the questions? And it's difficult to do that with speech analytics, whereas sentiment and emotion might be easier to do through speech analytics. So kind of different products for the customer's needs. The second question here is rating them from 1 to 10. So if I click next, I can rate them from 1 to 10. So I'll give them a 9 out of 10. And then our next one is another yes or no, but you could have multiple choice. So if it was a sales call and there might be 5 products you sell, you could tick the ones that you mentioned and leave the ones that you didn't, and then you can see the products that they're most comfortable talking about, which allows you then to focus on strengths and weaknesses and what areas that they need to look at. And then the results would look like this. So this would show you highest scoring agents, lowest scoring, actual question breakdown, which you can expand on as well. Agent performance to make sure they're improving over time, which is the most important thing. Score history, which you can expand on, and you can play really high scoring calls from here. You can actually filter on that score. So play any call where they've got over 95% score, and that's really good for training new starters. And then you've got your general lead table, and you can filter on agents if you were going through this with them, and you can export those results too. Okay, so that's a whistle-stop tour of the recording. Obviously, we're happy to go through this more in depth at another time, maybe less in a webinar environment. And if you do want that, please do feel free to reach out to your relevant person at Oak. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Ben now, who's going to take over from the Tiger perspective. But thank you very much for listening to the recording part today.
Thank you, Chloe.
No worries.
Going to show screen. Hopefully you can confirm when you see that.
Yeah, I can see that.
We've got it. We haven't got you. We can't see you.
I thought I'd turn the camera back on. Hold on. There we go. Is that back?
Got you.
Okay, great. So yeah, good morning again, everyone. So very pleased to be here. Caroline and I are going to walk you through a little bit of an introduction to who Tiger are and what our product Prism offers, and a little bit about the demonstration, similar flow to what Chloe's delivered. So you actually have Caroline and I, 2 of the partners here and owners at Tiger. So we're very excited about the prospect of the partnership that we have developing with Oak, and can really see a bright future for both of us in terms of what we're trying to achieve here. Importantly, you know, we've actually kind of sort of known each other for a long time. So many of you on the call might not realise that Tiger and Oak are actually located less than 15 miles away from each other. So we've always known of each other's businesses and the people within them, and clearly a lot of presence within the channel together. So the fact that they have now specialised within the recording and compliance space, and we've continued to specialise within analytics and reporting, the synergy between us working together is fantastic. And what's really important to us is, you know, our customers. So our customer retention is, you know, we believe fantastic. We've got an NPS score of over 84 points, which puts us in the real top bracket. And we know that's very similar for Oak. And so therefore, us working together really does open up the opportunity for us to add better value and customer experience for you. So we have always come from that sort of call logging, reporting, analytics space with extensive coverage across all of the type of legacy platforms and now the new UC and collaboration cloud platforms. So our customer base, not quite as broad as Oak's, but we've got over 600, and I'll show you some of those logos in a second, but it's across all of the verticals. And our flagship software offering is Tiger Prism. Okay, so Tiger Prism is actually our fourth iteration of reporting software, and is available fully as a SaaS offering. Some of our customers, due to certain data sovereignty, do want to have the service installed on premise or within their own cloud infrastructure. That's absolutely fine. It's the same pricing model. It just means that they have more sort of security around the way they want to do things. But the majority of our customers now use our SaaS offering. So as I said, customer retention, we're really pleased with these stats. You know, I think our customers really enjoy using the system, but mostly they really enjoy working with us as a company. And again, that synergy with Oak is clear. So here are some of our customers. You'll see across all of those different verticals. You'll notice there's some very large enterprise customers on there, but there's equally some smaller. Our software does scale completely, so it doesn't matter whether you're single site with 100 or less users, right the way up to some of our customers have well over 100,000 users globally. But they use effectively the same software tool set between each of them, and that kind of capability, certainly around Teams, is the same. So we're very proud of that customer base. We actually ran a webinar similar to this recently, and again, had lots and lots of customers on there. So the engagement is clear. So what does Tiger Prism actually offer you? So we talk about 3 stages really. So acquire, normalize, and visualize. So you may have a hybrid estate. You might have a mixture of different collaboration tool sets, or you might just use Microsoft Teams as a single vendor. But we will actually do what is the complex part. So we will use, the same as Oak, the graph APIs to actually extract information, and we will then bring that into a standard database where we will normalize the information, and we will then add to that the context, which is to do with your business. Now, when we talk about that, we might talk about the relationship between users and departments. We might talk about the way that you actually, or the tariff that you might pay for the call. We might actually talk about where your staff are located, so which different office that they're in, based on things like IP address ranges. But there's lots of different context that relates to you as a business. And by using that contextual information and overlaying it over effectively the transactional data that's generated by Teams, that's where we can start to really delve into some real transformational and business change and business outcomes. And then finally, it's about how do you actually see that information, how do you understand it, and how do you actually make better data-driven decisions. So that's the principles of why use Tiger Prism. And we do support, much like all the different vendors, So clearly, again, I talked about some of our customers have a hybrid system, especially in some of those larger enterprises, because they might have a complex call routing or some trader board systems that they might not want to actually migrate over immediately. So they might actually use a mixture of one of the more traditional platforms along with Teams over the top. But Tiger Prism is an agnostic product, so therefore we can support a combination of these and all within a single pane of glass. And I think that's really one of the key principles as well, is that where some of the teams in reporting information is available, it tends to be split across different screens, or maybe you have to really kind of deep dive and delve into certain flows to be able to find it. Prism is a single pane of glass that gives a really nice, easy to use interface that can also, similar to Oak, have user configuration and security grouping assigned. That means that people can only see the information that they're permitted to see. So again, we're going to give you a demo, and Caroline will talk about some of that within some of the dashboards and screens that she'll show. So we have effectively a message that we like to share with people and our customers. And we know that our customers are on different stages of the journey. Now, some of our customers simply have a regulatory or compliance need to store information, and that's absolutely fine, and they might not be ready to then do more with that information because they don't understand what they might be able to achieve. So we start customers sometimes at that log and respond level. It just means that you're not losing the information. And one of the real benefits now, especially with Teams, is that the data is not like your standard call logging information. It's so much broader. There's information in there about what device people were using, where they were, what headset, what firmware versions that they were using, what software versions. So there's a huge amount more information. What modalities? Did they use screen sharing, or did they have video enabled? So there's far more information now that helps customers move up through these levels. Report and inform is, we've got the data, but we want to share that information on a regular basis. That could be your traditional kind of scheduled reports. Again, it's about distributing it into the business. Analyze and optimize is then, we want to do that more in more real time. We want to see what's happening. We want to be alerted to the real kind of change or things that might be able to impact our business. And we want to be able to optimize some of our processes. Well, you can optimize them by knowing in real time, not just waiting until the end of the day or the end of the week to make a change. And engage and transform is, some of our customers very much have it as an IT tool. We've had huge success with customers that have then started to talk to other areas of their business. So for example, security teams or finance or customer services, where the information involved or available could help drive better decisions within the business and really help to deliver some of those transformation projects. And then finally at the top, we have empower and inspire. And this is really about joining up a message within organizations that's about data-driven decisions and improving all of the processes that sit behind the way you interact with your teams, your staff, your customers, and ultimately making sure that you're looking forwards all of the time to try and drive your business ahead. And that might involve then integrations into other data systems. So again, like Oak, we have the capability to pull and merge data from different systems. And this is really what we try and talk to our customers. It doesn't matter what stage of the journey you're on, we will try and help you see whether or not there are additional things that you can achieve. And we've got lots of case studies and lots of user stories that really kind of back this up. So again, any kind of questions that you might have on those, clearly we've got material on our website. We've got a really nice ebook that talks about this journey and includes some of those case studies. And again, that's available on our website. We can also share it post the event if we need to. and some really good information in there. So why Tiger Prism on top of the native portal? I mentioned earlier the information, some of the information is available, but it can be quite onerous to go and find it. Equally, you might need to have additional skills around, say, Power BI, which a lot of businesses don't have, or even if they do have them, maintaining it due to certain change is actually an overhead. So Prism, our software development team are constantly monitoring the APIs, they're constantly testing, and we're developing the product and enhancing the product all of the time. So we take away that kind of need to keep a check and maintain things. We obviously can store information on an unlimited basis. There are some tiered charges for how long you might want to have that. But importantly, the portals from Microsoft and other vendors might only store the information for 12 months. You may have a need to store that for longer. We have that role-based access and security, the enhanced detail, and ultimately, we've also started to deliver things now around licensing. So it might be that you've got Microsoft Teams voice licensing enabled on every single user, but you also supply mobile phones to those users, and actually they're using their mobile phone for PSTN rather than using Teams, and therefore you could be saving a significant amount of money every time for not using that. There's also, performance. So, how engaged are your team members? Are they turning video on? Are they attending the meetings that they're supposed to be attending? Are they joining for a minute and then dropping off? And ultimately, that this data is available, and it helps you understand how your staff members are working within your business. Another example is if you've invested in audio devices to give a better audio experience. You might have invested in headsets. Are the staff using those headsets? Are they using the right version of Teams? If there was a security vulnerability, for example, these are all things that we can help you achieve. So again, identifying and improving quality issues. This is a big area. We all work together now on these types of meetings, but it's no good if we're not able to hear each other. We're getting disconnects, and a lot of people are working in a hybrid fashion. That's great. We encourage that, but what if they're using Wi-Fi and they're getting bad bandwidth, that they're constantly complaining that Teams isn't working for them? You can use this to understand whether or not they could be improving their own situation rather than just blaming the technology. And we're also, again, this license optimization, we're extending this at the moment, and we'll be launching it later in 2024 as a part of Prism. But we can offer it as a consultancy piece of work at the moment, where we use our data collection tools to extract out information about the actual Microsoft M365 licensing. So we can tell whether customers have got E3s, E5s, business voice. We can then look at Power BI and things like that. And a lot of customers sign up to a number of licenses. And then people might, go off on sick, they might have maternity, they might leave the business, and that isn't reflected in the assignment of licenses. And then when a new starter joins, instead of going and finding a license that could be recycled, they actually go and purchase another license. So we've got tools that would be able to give you some insight into knowing what's assigned, what's available, what that might cost, and some of the efficiencies that you might be able to actually deliver. So again, that is a consultancy product that we can offer today, but in 2024, that will be coming into Prism. And I think, also to really touch on some of the integrations that this partnership between Tiger and Oak can deliver. So we're adding the ability to play from Prism for the Oak recordings so that you can again use that single pane of glass. We're also investigating some of the additional telemetry data that Oak receives, because they receive information about when people pause video, when they go on mute and things like that, which we don't currently see. We just see a binary, did they enable video or not? So we're looking at whether or not we can share additional telemetry data together. We're also looking at those keywords and questions. Can we display that information? So, it's really exciting as to some of the synergy and some of the integration that we'll be able to deliver throughout the rest of this year and 2024, that if you have both products, then you'll be able to get even more value. Importantly, again, the data is encrypted at rest for us. And I think that, we clearly have a great synergy and offering here that, similar to Oak, it's a price per user per month. Due to there is a small setup fee based on the fact that there is an amount of customer configuration, like those tariffs and that organizational structure. But clearly, we'd be happy to discuss that with any of you in a follow-up call. And I think really that's a broad intro. And Caroline, obviously, if you'd like to add anything to that, but then I'll pass over to you for a demonstration.
No, you've talked an awful lot about it. Now I've got to try and shoehorn showing them about it in a couple of minutes.
I'm going to press change present.
It's going to be a taster for sure, isn't it? Right.
We should be passing that over to you now.
I've got presenter mode. So yeah, let's see what we can show here. So if I show my screen and move that up there, hopefully you guys are seeing what I'm seeing now with the Tiger Prism splash screen. Is that a yes, Ben?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I can see your screen now.
That's all I need to know. Right, okay, in that case, Ben's done a very eloquent job of talking about the pros of the Prism solution in comparison to the native Microsoft Teams in this instance. But now I've got to see how much we can shoehorn into a short space of time. So whistle stop tour, as Chloe did with Clarify Go. We'll see how much we get through. But really want to show you a couple of highlights today in the Prism platform for you. Nice little taster, and we're more than happy to go through more in-depth demonstrations tailored to your own requirements as and when. So today I spoke with the team about this one. What are the top 3, top 5 kind of focus information that we find at the moment? And the big challenge that we've got in showing you just that top 5 is the sheer plethora of information that is actually available to you within Microsoft Teams. Ben touched on the actual data that was there in the first instance, and what we're finding at the moment in particular is that idea that that data is so broad. It's now more a case of how we actually get the information that's specifically required for your particular reasoning. And part of that is this idea that in the same way that we have our IT department looking at a Microsoft Teams deployment and all of that data, it's about how we actually share that information and make really good business use of it, a bit like that Level Up campaign that Ben talked about, to individuals that can make a difference with the information that they're seeing and make day-to-day business decisions on what they're actually up to. So we've got a couple of ways of looking at the information. Dashboards is my personal favorite in that it gives me something immediate to it. Plethora of dashboards available to you with the idea that that templates the information that you might need for your particular job role, with the idea that role-based security means that I can see as much or as little as my IT, my admin team have granted me access to. So in this instance, whilst I'm a super admin user on this estate and I could see the crown jewels if I so desired for our entire organisation, what I can actually do is start to come down and select a specific group of individuals that probably have more relevance just to me. So I'm going to select the sales team there. I could actually select a kind of, a choice of what I want, but I'm only seeing access to what I've been given. As a sales manager, as a department manager, I could now just have access to a very specific group of individuals, a specific group of stats, and allow me to home down on the bits that are most relevant to me. So if I start to have a look at it from the sales team, one of the big things that Ben talked about there was that user activity side of things, and being able to understand the modality, the activity, the interaction that your individuals are having with the actual platform and your external teams. So some really nice, easy stats that mean I'm not having to understand my platform, I'm not having to understand the organization structure, because we can take that from Azure AD to actually give you some context, again, where Ben talked about layering up the information that you're getting there, and allowing you to actually visually see what's going on with your users within your departments. So if I was looking at this specifically from my own department, I could actually nicely see which bits I want to turn on, turn off in terms of the activity that they're making, the areas of the business that we're focusing on, and who's doing what comparatively against each other even within the estate as it stands. So user activity is a huge one from a department manager level. You've then also got the idea of, let's take it slightly dialing back. We've got loads of user insights, device insights. Ben talked about the platforms and the utilization with that one, just really quickly looking at who's using which devices within the organization. Are they all supported? Are they all part of, you bring your own device possibly scheme into the organization, or is there something that's highlighting in there and causing us a few issues? As we go down into call insights, one of the specific areas that we've seen a lot of development on recently is, rather than look at it as individuals, I touched on that with the departmental usage side of things, but it's more that customer service side. So we've got our performance, our KPI analysis, but call queues specifically within Microsoft Teams is something that really does deserve a little bit more analysis than they're getting from the native analysis at the moment. So in the same way as all the rest of the dashboards within the system, it's about choosing the platform. I'm only choosing Microsoft Teams in this instance. Which display of the information I want, departmentally, cost center, and which queue I'm particularly interested in. Again, I'm picking on the sales queue in this particular insight, but all of the queues are configured there, and it allows me to display based on quick dates, specific moments in time versus your own idea of a calendar analysis, and build through to see what's actually going on, switching on and off the information that I don't want to see on it. And within these dashboards, then being able to actually home down in on the specific information that is available to us. If I just want to see my unanswered calls, for argument's sake, and I want to start to filter that through, I can start to specifically see what goes on. And I'm doing all of that from a very controlled, very specific need within my business without understanding anything to do with how the organization's tying together, how the actual physical platforms tying together. And more importantly, I'm not seeing any of my crown jewel side of things that might expose information that our IT, our CISO, or FD, or any of those types of people might not want me to see within the business. Okay, but I'm still able to make decisions based on what's actually happening within my business. Okay, so dashboards is the best way for a generic user to actually pick and choose and get some access to the information. Importantly, reports are there, so we could have it from a not having anybody with any access to the solution still receive information on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, so recipients from anywhere within the business. And then Ben talked about that granularity and the richness of the information that's in the system. And how we handle that one is, rather than have it all available to everybody for any other reason, those dashboards and reports give you a template to the scenario, but we can come into analytics, which gives us a more technical review of absolutely everything that's available to us within that Graph API file. It's a huge amount of information within there. And now this is just a case of us building a couple of widgets to give us a vagary template, but also being able to actually expose anything that might be available within that JSON file, so that you can peg count, aggregate, and analyze the specifics that really make a difference to you. For this one, just to give you a little insight in what's going on within that one, if I just choose a sessions situation, and let's have a look at one where we've got a multi-team call and lots of people in order of there. So if I just bring some of these columns down, I've built a vagary of a starting point for it, but I can start to now pick and choose exactly what I actually want within there. So if we have a look at any sessions that have got more than 6 people in the party to it, and have a look at that over the last month, for argument's sake, you'll see an awful lot of information coming through there. I can now get very specific in terms of, actually, maybe I just want to understand who it's from. And this is the joy of actually working with analytics. It's not about trying to get a wealth of information, it's about trying to hone down specifically on the areas that mean most to you. So straight away you can see I'm getting down into the nitty-gritty of exactly what makes interest to me. If we have a look at this particular call, this was a team call the other day, as it turns out, and you can see exactly who was party to that call. We've got some generic information about the actual call itself, the quality. Dan wins, Dan joined the call first. We can tell you all about the modalities that were used within the call. We had audio, we had screen sharing, and we had video on for everybody in that sense. We've got some great stats in there when it comes to the politics of it, and we can tell everything about who was party to that particular call, when they joined, how they joined, and when they came in and out of it. As we start to home down in, we can see, actually, I can pick on you here, Ben, you were the latest one to that call. So not only did he join late, he finished early on this one as well. Mike and myself carried on with the call. You had somewhere else to be, we won't make it to. But what I'm trying to get across here is the amount of specific information that is available to us really does give us the ability to start to think about how we can home down in on this and give some information to the people that mean the most to it in our organisation. Now, obviously, from my perspective, we are very short on time this morning. I don't really want to go too much into everything that becomes a bit more of a relevance for us. So I'm going to hand back over to Chloe and the team at this point, but hopefully that gives you a taster into the areas that we can start to look at with you in Microsoft Teams and beyond for your legacy systems as well, but gives us the option to actually see how we can actually help you with your analysis and feed that into the areas of the business that make the most changes to your day-to-day decision making within the system.
And just one final point to add is that it will be within that analytics screen that you'll be able to do that play from Prism piece, because you found the session or the meeting or the call that you're looking for, and then it's a case of, right, Tiger, go and reach into Oak to then pull the recording so that you can then actually evaluate it more. And again, you would have seen where Caroline was adding or be able to add those columns, things like the questions, any keywords, etc. We'll be looking at building those kind of relationships out as well. So that's where you'll really start to see the real power of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Just to say, we've had some other last minute questions come in, so we're going to just go through those so that everything's answered by both Oak and Tiger in one list, and then we'll send that out to everyone that's joined the webinar today. So if your question hasn't been answered, look out for an email follow-up and your answer will be on there.
Yeah, Chloe, I don't think your video's on, by the way, just so you know.
Oh, sorry, I was just quickly jumping on. Can you see me now?
Yeah, see you now.
Oh. Yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining, and thanks Ben and Caroline as well, that you did a brilliant job. I'm sure everyone will agree. And yeah, if anyone needs anything, please feel free to reach out to us. Well, like I say, we'll be sending out follow-ups with everyone's emails, so any questions, please reach out.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.